We begin in Washington, where it's been a contentious day on Capitol Hill. Members in the House of Representatives have just voted in favor of a resolution condemning comments from President Donald Trump. Now, the resolution calls his comments directed at 4 female members of Congress as racist. Now, Trump said if these Democratic congresswomen of color did not like the United States, they should go back to the countries they come from. He also said they hate America.
The yeas are 240, the nays are 187. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Now, as we've noted, the vote was along party lines, with Democrats voting in favor, 4 Republicans and 1 independent also voted for the resolution. The vast majority of Republicans sided with the president and voted against it. For more on this, I'm now joined by the Hill reporter Julia Manchester, who's in Washington. Julia, let's begin with some sort of understanding of the significance of the resolution that's just been passed.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a symbolic measure that was essentially passed, and this is something that can really hold the president, and condemn him on these remarks. And I think it basically shows, Democrats, for the record, condemning them on the floor of the House, and the majority of the body of the House condemning the president. But yes, this is symbolic in its nature. But, you're seeing a lot of Republicans, like we saw in the video that the program played a little earlier, who are frustrated, clearly, and very much defending the president on this issue. So, a lot to really unpack here. I saw another reporter tweet today that the hottest club in Washington right now was the floor of House of Representatives, because we saw how, so much of the rhetoric was really getting heated on the floor. So, a lot to unpack, but clearly this is a very symbolic move to condemn President Trump.
You mentioned the heated rhetoric back and forth on the floor. Describe some of that. What were some of the standout moments?
I think you saw a lot of obviously Democrats really backing up the squad, as they're known. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, and really calling the president racist. But you saw 4 Republicans vote along with Democrats to condemn the president, and along with Justin Amash, the former Republican congressman who has since become an independent and who has been very critical of President Trump. Another one of those Republicans who voted in favor of condemning these remarks was Congressman Will Hurd, who represents a Texas congressional district that's majority Hispanic. Will Hurd himself is African American, so clearly a personal issue for him. But yes, lots of heated back and forth, and clearly this is really drawn along party lines.
You mentioned that 4 Republicans sided with the resolution, sided with the Democrats, and then you had that former Republican who's now an independent. There was some thinking earlier in the day that Republicans would just not show up, and so that they wouldn't necessarily have to participate in the vote because they were so uncomfortable with the nature of the debate. Is that what ended up happening, or did everyone show up?
You saw for the most part quite a bit of Republicans showing up to this. I think if no one had showed up, that would look like Republicans maybe running away, and that wouldn't be very strategic for them in the long run. I think they wanted to show up to what this was, really kind of a fight on the floor of the House, and they also wanted to show up to defend President Trump. They are very much at the whim of President Trump, who is very popular within the Republican Party. So I think the president is very much expecting the Republican members in the House to defend him and kind of stay aligned with him on this issue.
Let's talk about the president. What are going to be the next steps for him as this debate continues?
I think the president is going to, if we look at his past rhetoric and past controversies he's been in, he's going to really dig in on this issue. And I don't see him really apologizing anytime soon. And it's interesting because if you talk to some Republicans behind closed doors, as well as Republican strategists, they're very frustrated with the president, because here is a president with a growing economy, a declining unemployment rate, but he's sitting here kind of getting involved with internal Democratic infighting, which was all how this started out, kind of a infighting between Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, and these 4 progressives, and Trump essentially inserted himself into this brawl. And he could be tweeting about the economy and how much job growth is happening under his administration. I think essentially going into 2020, a lot of Republican strategists, a lot of those Republican House members we've heard from, would want him to talk about the economy, because that will help them as as well. But we know that President Trump doesn't really listen to communication strategists or experts on this, and he's going to tweet and say really what he wants.
So, but do you think that this was an emotional response for him, these comments, these tweets, or was he being strategic just in a different way than his advisors would like?
It's very possible, and I think there was a lot of strategy involved behind this. Remember, President Trump's entire campaign, going back to when he launched in 2015, was launched on kind of a racially charged, nativist sentiment, if you will. He talked about closing American borders, building a wall with Mexico, kind of blaming outsiders and kind of labeling foreigners as others. So I think he understands that immigration is something that will get his base riled up, and we saw him doing it in the 2018 midterm elections when he was trying to turn out Republicans to vote. So I think this could be a way for him to kind of continue to rile up his base. But like I said before, he inserted himself in an argument between Democratic members. Remember, this all started last week when Nancy Pelosi held a meeting with the Democratic caucus and essentially said, there are 4 of you who continue to criticize our strategy when it comes to maybe making a deal with Republicans in the administration, and that needs to stop. And you saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez give an interview with the New York Times and essentially suggests that Nancy Pelosi is targeting 4 of her own members who happen to be women of color. So that's where this entire saga kind of all began, and President Trump inserted himself into that. So I'm wondering if there was some kind of calculus to try to maybe, expose the infighting within the Democratic Party, but that would have blown it not in President Trump's favor, because we've seen that Democrats have united completely behind the squad on Twitter.
Okay, Julia, perhaps you can help clear something up for us. Just before we went to air, we were hearing that there was going to be a discussion on the floor about introducing an impeachment process. So is that in fact what's taking place now? And if it is, how will that whole process unfold?
Yeah, so you're seeing Congressman Al Green from Texas, who has been a member before, who has continued to call for impeachment proceedings against President Trump. But you're actually seeing a lot of Democrats who don't want to go in that direction, namely Nancy Pelosi, who has been kind of outspoken against impeachment and who has kind of wanted to, take this process slowly, and because impeachment could be a way to really rally up President Trump's base. So you're seeing Democrats really torn on this issue, but Al Green in particular has continued, ever since President Trump took office in 2016, has called for impeachment. So, this is kind of a continuation of his message on that.
And the impeachment process is lengthy. There need to be a series of votes. It could take a really long time. In fact, the election could come and go before an impeachment could even happen. So is this going to be a big distraction for the Democrats if they are really pushing in that direction?
It could be a big distraction, but I guarantee you Nancy Pelosi will at least try and might really well be successful in trying to prevent that oxygen and that attention being shone on impeachment. She wants her members who are up for re-election to focus on health care and economic issues, kitchen table issues that impact everyday Americans. So you're going to try to see her pushing for that. And remember, even if President Trump were to be impeached in the democratically controlled House, it would then go to the Republican-controlled Senate, where it would most certainly hit a dead end. So there is that calculus as to whether Democrats want to spend that political time and capital on something that's going to eventually fail in the upper chamber.
Okay, Julia, we'll continue to watch the debate, and we thank you so much for your analysis this evening.
Thank you.
That's Julia Manchester. She's with The Hill, joining us from Washington, D.C.